Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org.
Hello, this is Brian Mercer for Author Magazine. Today I'm interviewing Kristin Lamb, social media expert, founder and CEO of WANA International, and author of We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to Social Media. Kristin merges her years in sales and promotion with her experience as a writer and editor to create a program designed to help authors construct a platform in the new paradigm of publishing. She has helped all levels of writers, from the mega authors to the self-published, reach their dreams and achieve the impossible. Well, Kristin, thank you for speaking with me today on Author Magazine. And social media, the words every writer fears to hear, you're going to help us dispel that fear a little bit. So tell us about your book, We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to Social Media.
Well, when I wrote We Are Not Alone, several years ago, I saw the potential that social media had for writers, because I knew it had always been impossible for a fiction author to build a platform any other way than the books. But I have a running joke about, if a fiction book dies in the forest alone because no one's read it, does the book really exist? I mean, it was always kind of that problem that if the first book didn't catch on, then you couldn't build a platform, so you had no platform, so you didn't get more books. I looked at the way that things were changing with social media and how people were interacting. I was like, you know what? For the first time in history, it is going to be possible for a fiction author to build a platform before the first book even comes out. And it's going to drastically improve an author's chances of success. And when I read the BEA statistics of the failure rate of fiction authors, I was just horrified. It was something like, 93% of all authors published, traditionally and non-traditionally, sold less than 1,000 books. And the fundamental question was, were 93% of books all that bad? I don't want to believe that. I think it had more to do with nobody knew the book was there. And so if nobody knows it's there, then it can't get its chance. And so therefore it dies a quiet death. And so I saw social media as being the real game changer, especially because anyone looking down the pipeline could see publishing was next on the hit list after music, then Kodak, and extend the logic and, add two and two, and everyone knew that it was going to be publishing that was next. And so I wanted to get in and get writers trained early for what I saw coming down the pipeline. Granted, I started this several years ago and people thought I was crazy. But I was like, the people that really dig in now and start building a platform now are really going to reap some tremendous harvest when this paradigm finally does tip and shift. And part of the reason I wrote the book is I kept going to conferences, and the conferences, meaning well and trying to help authors, were bringing in, outside social media experts. But I felt they did not understand artists, they didn't understand writers, and they didn't understand the nature of our business. And they were trying to turn creative people into salespeople, and those two generally don't go together. And they were trying to fundamentally change the personality of the author, which is why so many writers go, oh, you're making me do social media. It's because they're trying to force them into a role that isn't natural and it isn't who they are. I always joke with writers, I say, how many of you are doing this writing thing until your sales career takes off? Nobody's like, yay, I want to go do sales. And yet so many of the way that writers were being taught was forcing them into this very, very uncomfortable role that didn't fit an artist's personality. And by trying to change the personality of the author, then what was coming across on social media obviously would not be authentic. And so it wouldn't resonate, and then the writer would hate doing it, and so it would be a slippery slope to failure. So I wrote We Are Not Alone, because I wanted writers to focus on the things that were really important and to give them ways of harnessing their imagination and their personality instead of trying to change it, and using what was unique and special about them to connect with their audience instead of trying to force them into this skin that didn't fit.
So you use the word platform. Could you explain for our listeners what you mean by platform?
Platform is one of those words that gets tossed around, and it confuses people, and the definitions really changed in the digital age, because, it used to be in the 90s we weren't plugged in on Twitter and Facebook. We weren't plugged in with people real time. So platform had to be very, very narrowly defined and fixed. If you blogged about gardening, you had a gardening blog, and you couldn't deviate and change too much because you would confuse the masses. And that's really the traditional paradigm, that everything was very, very, very narrow. Whereas in social media, everything's much more fluid and dynamic. And what I like to tell writers is we have really become the reality television show generation. And so therefore writers, in ways, our platform is our reality show. And it's how many people are connected and vested in us. Or like Kevin Kelly refers to it as your thousand fans. You know, how many people are going to be plugged in and care about anything that you have to post or say or your book. And your platform is really the whole of you. It's your personality. Everything we do on social media, every book, every blog, every article, if you can visualize them like different size bricks that all go to build this platform. So yes, our books are a huge building block in our platform, but that is also buttressed by every tweet, which could be small little bitty bricks, you know, every post on Facebook, every blog, every piece that we put on social media, every aspect of our personality. It forms the whole of our platform. And then the amount of engagement that we get, that is the value of our platform. I mean, if we have all these blogs and tweets out there, but nobody's paying attention, it's a useless platform.
Right, so what you're saying is the platform just isn't about a subject. So if you were writing, say, steampunk, it's not all steampunk blogs. It's really, you're selling you, right? Is that
Bingo.
correct?
You know, we are so inundated with choices and information that we really are longing for that human connection. And I think it's beginning to matter less and less what genre we write, because if I meet someone online and I really like that person, I like what they have to say, I don't care what genre they write. I've actually bought quite a few genres that I would normally never read, just because the person on social media was just so kind and authentic and genuine, and they were fun and interesting in their blogs. And so it becomes, you know, I always talk about, you know, I was a Rotarian for 6 years. And, you know, Rotary is where you get all these different types of professionals, you know, dentists and plastic surgeons and bankers and lawyers, and we all come together for lunch and we serve the community. But when it comes down to it and I need an accountant, I go to my friend at Rotary, if that makes sense.
Right, because you connect with them.
I mean, nobody shows up to a Rotary meeting with a table and a credit card machine and start selling stuff. But by showing up to Rotary and talking to people and networking with people and connecting with people, when I need an accountant, I go to the person at Rotary. And it's the same thing with selling our books. I mean, so many writers, you know, the dark side of this paradigm is I have seen so many writers turn into bad Amway salespeople. And they just tweet nonstop, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, 99 cents, free, free, free. And it's like, that stuff doesn't work. You know, it's estimated, I think I read somewhere there was like 250 billion messages generated every day on the internet, and 80% of those are spam. And we have literally retrained our vision to not see those things. They become white noise at best. At worst, every tweet, every post, every time we put ourselves out there, that creates our author brand. And how I define author brand is our name plus our content plus warm, fluffy feelings equals brand. So if every time I'm tweeting, I'm spamming people about my book, I'm actually harming my brand every single time I tweet, because the people that do actually see that are associating me with something very negative, which is a needy spam bot.
Right.
It's very self-centered, and it's actually eroding our platform every time we do behavior like that. Whereas every time we're kind, we're authentic, we're genuine, we help others, we talk to others, that's adding to that platform, the emotional component of that platform of, hey, you know, every time I see this author online, she's really nice, or he's really cool, he's really funny, he always posts the best stuff. So it's really an engagement, like an online Rotary club. It's who's the person that when they show up to this club that we like being around. So when we get that Kindle or Nook for Christmas, who's going to be the first person that we think to look for their books?
So Facebook, Twitter, blogging, it can be kind of daunting. Where does one start?
So the first thing I would recommend is my book, because I'll save you from a lot of newbie error. You know, the thing about the way I teach social media is, yes, you might be on a couple of platforms, but because when you're getting on, it's meaningful activity, overall, you're going to spend a lot less time on social media, if that makes sense.
Explain.
Well, if we've just automated 12 different sites, nobody's seeing what we're posting. And I often liken it to a lot of us grew up with grandparents that we didn't see very often, but we have such vivid memories of the time that we spent with our grandparents. And would we have paid that much attention or dedicated that much memory space to someone that we saw every day that we got used to? I mean, they kind of, mom's voice kind of droned into the background because we heard her all the time. Whereas when dad came home and said something, we all stopped. Well, it's because we didn't see him a lot. So, writers feeling the need to be on every single hour of the day, you really don't have to be present that much.
Because at some point it becomes noise, is what you're saying. Yeah.
I teach in my book, I call it the law of three. I say, 1/3 information, a link to your blog, 1/3 reciprocation, repost something for someone else. If someone's posted about their book or their blog or a funny video, repost for them. That shows that you're being engaged in the community and that you're promoting others instead of just promoting yourself. And then 1/3 conversation. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes that I hear people say is, well, why doesn't anyone care what I had for lunch? And it's like, well, actually we do, because if I get on Twitter and someone's just link after link after link after link after link, that's called a spam bot, and no, I mean, I don't want to hang around somebody that all they can talk about is what they had for lunch, because then you're kind of boring. But, when we do talk about those mundane things, I teach people it's the same reason that we mentioned the weather. It's easy for someone to start a conversation with us. So, if I tweet, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it through August, the Texas summer is a beating, it gives people on Twitter an automatic way to jump in and go, oh yeah, well, it's cold up here in Wisconsin. It gives us a way to start a conversation, and then the conversation obviously will naturally go to other things. But when we will tweet those mundane things, or we will get on and look for someone that, maybe, hey, I made my word count, and you tweet back, congratulations, it shows that you're vested in your community. I know when I was at Thriller Fest, they kept mentioning, oh, these tools, you can program your tweets, and I hate tools. And I had someone corner me and was trying to turn me the dark side of the merits of tools. And she says, well, I tweet all, I write all my tweets. I said, yeah. She says, but I program them in so that they'll tweet throughout the day. And I said, so you're a spam bot? She's like, no, I'm not a bot. I actually write my tweets. And I said, yes, but you're not there. If you tweet that and I respond, will you answer? She says, well, no. And I said, and I'm assuming that you're tweeting out links to your blogs and your books. And she says, well, yes, but I have to be at work, so I tweet that while I'm gone. And I said, okay, but the only way that those links work is if I am actually there and I can click on those links to see your books or your blogs. Am I correct? She says, yes. I said, so basically you want from me what you yourself are unwilling to give. I don't have anything better to do than be on Twitter and follow all your links, but your time is far too important to be on Twitter, is basically what you're telling me. And she's like, oh, wow, I see what you mean. And so that's where that conversational component comes in, that it might seem silly, but actually how we're showing others that, hey, I'm not expecting anything from you that I'm not doing. I'm getting on here and talking to people, and I'm actively engaged too. And what I've seen happen is that writers start thinking, well, if I automate everything to look like I'm participating, then I have more time to write. And the problem is that we're actually pretty sharp, and it doesn't take long for us to figure out that you're a bot. And so then not only do those tweets actually have no impact, but they ruin the community as a whole.
So there are writers out there who are completely new to social media or just are turned off by it. Help that writer, walk them through the process. What's the first step? What's the first thing they do?
The first thing that I would do, aside from getting my book, The Writer's Guide to Social Media, the only reason I push that is because there's a lot of fundamental things that if you do them correctly from the beginning, you're going to get much more return on investment for your efforts. See, when I wrote We Are Not Alone, I realized that, writers, we don't have a team of marketing people to go do this stuff for us. We still had to have time left over to produce really good books, because those are the biggest blocks of our platform, is good books. And we have to write better books and we have to write faster these days. But, we had to do social media in a meaningful way that freed up time to do books. And that's why I believe in relationships. So if the very first thing you ever did, I would sign up for a Twitter account, and I would download TweetDeck. and then just start following people and making friends.
So why Twitter? Why start with Twitter?
I think because it's going to be the easiest for them to connect with other writers, to where they can ask questions and they can get guidance from that point forward. It's going to be easier for you to start everything if you have a community to start with.
What if someone wants to start blogging? What advice would you give them?
Blogs are absolutely the most powerful tool that any writer has in their arsenal. And the reason is that, one, blogs are going to last a lot longer than any other social media. Twitter could be gone in a year, Facebook could implode, but blogs are going to remain. And the reason is that, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, all of those sites are trying to bring a social experience. So how we enjoy that social experience or define that social experience can change month to month or year to year. And when a new site comes along with a new visualize, people can abandon ship. Whereas blogs, their mission statement's always pretty much the same. It's to inform or entertain. And so they're going to be there.
So tell me about the 100 words method.
Well, what I try to get writers to think about, it goes back to your question earlier about this notion of our platform and our brand opening up. 20 years ago, what I do is I get writers to write down 100 words that if this was your ingredient list, and if you can do more than 100, better. It's better. Write as many words as you can, fragments of images, things that you love, things that you hate, songs that are particularly meaningful, love songs, songs that make you sad, songs that make you angry, favorite foods, favorite destinations, dreams, nightmares, anything. The more emotional the words, the better. And the reason is for a number of things. First of all, writers crack me up. The second they start blogging, they get this idea of, I'm a writer, so I'll blog about writing. And so you've got all these writers out there that have writing blogs. I'm one of them. I can't say anything. Editor, and I was coming out with a platform of being an expert. Whereas a fiction author, you don't need a platform as an expert. You're a storyteller. So why I do the 100 words is I want writers to blog in ways that are going to connect to their readership in the same way that their novels will. So what the 100 words does is, first, it gets writers out of that myopic vision of, I'm a writer, so I will talk about all things writing. And it gets them over into that right brain side where they can start looking at that 100 words, and one, it'll give a sense of their writing voice. And secondly, it'll give topics that are going to be much more likely to connect with their readership.
So in other words, you're putting yourself out there as a person. You're your own reality TV show.
Yeah, I tell people, just because we're a reality show doesn't mean we need to give every intimate detail of our lives, but we are vulnerable with our audience in a way that connects with them. When we're talking at them as an author, most people are not an author, they're not in our industry, so it doesn't give them an opportunity to connect with us as a human being and a person.
So if someone wants to take your class, how would they do that?
You can bookmark my WANA International website, because that's where I have all the classes that I teach, and also other WANA instructors. We teach everything you can imagine, from craft classes to business classes to social media classes. But it would be at www.wanaintl.com. So just bookmark that and keep posted.
What is the ideal amount of time to blog? Once a day, once a week?
I think blogging should be done 3 times a week. And the reason is you're going to gain traction far faster at 3 times a week. 1 time a week, it's too easy to forget you. And every day or 5 days a week, you're on too much. But the way that I teach blogging, you're probably not going to have to write as many posts as you believe you will. First of all, if you'll do the 100 words and you'll do the high concept blogging, you will be shocked how much stuff you have to talk about, because the world becomes your muse. You don't have a writing blog or a steampunk blog or a pet blog. Now the world is your muse, and now it's harnessing what writers naturally do. And what writers do really well is we look at the regular world and we assign meaning to things that people overlook.
Thanks, Kristen, for talking with me today. You've been listening to Kristin Lamb, author of We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to Social Media.